has dug into the pastry plate.
I'm fighting the urge. I'm biding my time. It's inevitable.
You brought the cookies, right?
I did bring the cookies, actually. Yes, these are my mother-in-law's. She makes these cookies, hand makes these cookies. And she said to me today, I want you to make sure that Candace Gibson gets a cookie. He's such a nice man. I wish my daughter would have married him instead of... Well, I don't want to get into that. It's a whole family thing I don't want to get into. But yeah, it's not going.
I completely agree with your mother-in-law, by the way.
Her daughter should have married me. Yes, no.
I read the tweets. They really like this one. This is a fan
The bunny butt?
Oh, that's great.
It's the rabbit. That's the bunny butt.
And nobody has an excuse anymore that they gave it up for Lent.
No, I just can't handle a good pastry in the morning. I once tried to eat a banana on set, and I was advised against that by Twitter as well.
No health here.
I know.
Also joining the panel.
If you eat the carrot, I think that's healthier.
Yeah. Also joining the panel, by the way, is the distinguished professor at American University and presidential historian, Alan Lichtman. Alan, I hope they sent down some desserts down there for you. If not, I'll bring some next week while I'm there. But thank you for being here with us. All right, so let's get back to the conversation, shall we? So, Ken, tell me what exactly it is that Don McGahn told the special counsel that made him such a significant witness, Ken?
Well, I mean, so many things, right? But perhaps the most intriguing part of it was essentially Trump ordering the firing of Mueller and McGahn and others refusing to carry it out. And then going and taking notes about all these episodes and speaking to the special counsel about it. And we knew this through media reports, but it's one thing to see it in the media. It's another thing to see it in black and white in the special counsel's report. I mean, to the extent that the obstruction of justice case is robust against Donald Trump, Don McGahn is a key witness and a key interlocutor in that case.
And that really is the clear part there, Alan, isn't it? Don McGahn sat with prosecutors for some 30 hours. He met them for more than 9 times. We had to have known that he would have played a key part here in the writing of the Mueller report.
No question about that. But I've got to put this in a little bit of perspective.
Okay.
Don McGahn is no hero simply because he didn't carry out the most unhinged orders of this president. You know, some of Richard Nixon's aides did not carry out some of his more extraordinary orders, like firebombing the Brookings Institution. Don McGahn, when he was with the Federal Election Commission, did his best to throttle the campaign finance laws. He has worked with Donald Trump to salt the federal judiciary with extreme conservatives. He is a major figure in throttling our environmental regulations and subjecting every American to the threat of extreme climate change.
Don't you think that also he's a major figure, based on the report, that he's a major figure in avoiding a constitutional crisis if the president has gone ahead and done some of the stuff that he's accused of doing in the report?
You know, in a sense, I wish the president had gone ahead and fired Robert Mueller, because then we would have immediately done what the U.S. House must do under the U.S. Constitution: begin an impeachment inquiry. But because the Mueller report is so ambiguous, has so little that is new, I worry that the Congress is going to shirk its responsibilities, that this president is going to get away with undermining the Constitution and the law with no retribution whatsoever.
All right, and Danny, in the meantime, you know, Barack Obama's counsel, Bob Barr, wrote an op-ed. I want to quote a part of it for you right now. He says, Mr. McGahn made it commendably clear to the president that he was an institutional lawyer, not his personal lawyer, and that their conversations about matters before the special counsel were not privileged. So would it be safe to say that the president wanted a Roy Cohn, but he got instead a John Dean?
He got a Don McGahn. And Don McGahn, Professor Lichtman is correct. Don McGahn was at least following the rules of ethics and the law. When clients give us orders, generally the client is right, like the customer. But if the client asks us to go beyond the rules of ethics, go beyond the law, we are required as lawyers to resist and to stop representing that person if we have to.
And I think that the reason that we're actually, he is in some way like a little bit of a hero in this story. And I think it's just because the standards are so unbelievably low in this administration. We've seen time after time of self-dealing, of use of power, whether it's in the White House, out of the White House, in the administration, for clients, for self-enrichment, for self-dealing. So I think that's actually where the standard is for this administration, is the fact that we actually see someone who holds just the line of a constitutional crisis seems incredible. I mean, it really takes me back to the beginning of the administration when there was this question of both politicals, Republican politicals, Democratic politicals, and career people who are in the administration of saying, is it worth it to try to stick out your post and try to contain him a little bit and try to get the work of this, whatever the job is done, despite the president? And I think what people are seeing is it's not worth that deal.
But you do get a sense.
Can I jump in here?
Go ahead, Professor.
Yes. It is extraordinary that we have a president whose model for a lawyer is Roy Cohn, who worked hand in hand with Senator Joseph McCarthy to facilitate one of the most shameful and harmful episodes in American history, the Great Red Scare of the 1950s. And by the way, we know that when he was sued by the Justice Department for violating the fair housing laws, who did Donald Trump turn to in the 1970s? Roy Cohn. It's also shameful that we have a president who is now considering using the power of his office to punish his political enemies, maybe even to punish Don McGahn for not following his unconstitutional orders. This is Putin-like. This is not American.
Can weigh in, or Francesca weigh in, because Danny's too busy chewing.
I was also going to say that his model for a lawyer was Michael Cohen as well, and he says in the report, why do you take notes to Don McGahn? A real lawyer doesn't take notes, and my first reaction to that was, no, your lawyers are recording you, and you didn't know about it. So maybe Michael Cohen wasn't taking notes because he was recording you on the phone instead.
Roy Cohn, by the way, who famously said, I don't know what the law is, I want to know who the judge is.
Exactly. That's Roy Cohn in a nutshell. The truly
might as well be
thing,
Trump.
If McGahn really wanted to be a hero, he would have gone public and essentially said, you know, look, the president is giving me illegal orders, I'm resigning, and the American people should know this immediately. He didn't do that, so, you know, the question of whether he's a hero will be debated in history.
And there's almost a model for that really with Mathis,
Yes.
right? And John Kelly made to some degree.
So in the meantime, by the way, Francesca, there was a New York Times article I wrote that stated Mueller witnesses who once served in the White House are now fearing the wrath of Trump. Do we know if Don McGahn is one of those witnesses? And obviously, he probably might be, but who else?
So he doesn't work there anymore.
Yeah.
And many of the people, I will say, who are involved in this Mueller report do not work there anymore, right? Like Michael Flynn doesn't work there anymore. Again, he's not there anymore. The Jeff Sessions, he's in there. He's not there anymore. Rod Rosenstein on his way out. So I think that the current White House officials who are still there, that's a possibility, but it's a dwindling group of people who are still working at the White House, who were there at the beginning and who were there over this time when James Comey was fired.
I should mention there was a line of hedge right there near the Rose Garden, but I get a sense that many White House staffers are going to be looking like Homer Simpson and just trying to pull back into it after this.
Any time in a presidency after some folks have been there for 2 years, 3 years, that's when people start to head for the exits. Anyway, may this have facilitated some of those? That's, again, possible. But if you start seeing people head for the exits, this would roughly be the time when you would expect that in a presidency anyway.
All right, one more question for the professor in the meantime. Alan, you were the first to predict that Trump would be elected after this week. Do you predict impeachment or re-election?
For a long time, I have been sticking to my prediction of impeachment. But I worry that the Democrats have learned nothing, that they will once again play not to lose, avoid what is constitutionally their duty, to hold an impeachment inquiry, not to rush into impeachment. And by the way, it's not just the material in the Mueller report. You know, the obstruction of justice material, it's 10 times more damning than the material against Bill Clinton when virtually every Republican voted for his impeachment. But there are a whole host of other issues. Let's not forget, he's implicated in 2 felonies for campaign finance law violations. These are not technical violations. The campaign finance laws are designed to avoid the corruption of our political system.
So
he is implicated in violating the emoluments clause of the Constitution. He's implicated in financial crimes. Surely this merits an impeachment investigation if Democrats have any spine at all.
all right. So
Yeah, I'm a huge Professor Lichtman fan, and he's absolutely right that we've known for a long time that the DOJ takes the position already that President Trump, not yet President Trump, violated campaign finance law when Michael Cohen stood up in court and said exactly that. That may be the next avenue.
All right, we'll leave it at that for right now. Professor Lichtman, our thanks to you on this Easter Sunday.
Of course.
Is this keto?
Yes, it is keto. It is.
Perfect.
It is, yes.
Awesome. Good to know. All right, so first it was sanctions are coming, then it became game over. How Donald Trump's baffling obsession with Game of Thrones knows no bounds and is starting to border on the absurd. Next.
There is only one war that matters. The Great War.
We will build the Great Wall.